Testing. Testing. No sound? No, don't say nothing. I'm going to take it back there. I've got a cable. I'm going to plug it in.
This isn't live either.
No, it's not. I don't have it on. Would you like to test it?
I was just thinking if they're all connected to the system. If that's the same. But we did fill the time.
Testing. Testing 1, 2. Testing. Okay, that works.
When like a couple years ago, I could fill it.
I'm going to go back up front and plug this back in. If you will please let me know if I'm getting any feedback from this mic. Like this, testing. You see, I can hear it here, and also you got feedback here.
So, are you looking for too much feedback, or you just want to know that you're getting some?
I'm not getting.
This thing is. I can't see it. That is not the best place for me to see that.
Testing. 1, 2, testing. You can see it? Good, thank you. Okay, this mic just doesn't.
Oh, this is not even plugged in, I see.
Sorry?
Is there still a power strip here?
There's an outlet over here.
Good. Because I need to see. Wait, it's gotta be behind.
We can slide it under there.
I'll work easy.
Well, that's now the problem is. Polarity is polarized. So.
I did see it.
Yeah, you're perfect. You said you saw the signal?
It was low, but yes, it was hopping around.
I turned the gain up maybe.
Is that power adapter getting loose in there?
She just plugged in. It's for the light. It wasn't even plugged in, so she is just putting it
All
on.
right. I need that because I'm getting old. My vision's not what it used to be, but it's not that bad. I guess for my age, it's pretty good.
I should be looking forward, but I've already got a mic in here, so I'm gonna.
Do you want me to talk into it?
I believe the years going by so fast. Like, that is 25, he's gonna be 26 in September.
That's so crazy.
My little baby.
It's amazing.
Testing, testing, 1, 2. Testing, testing.
Why is that on?
Well, no, you don't have to sing at it. It's just going to pick up the general sound. Because he had the boom mic for the piano. And I think it's just trying to balance the two or something.
They're both going to be okay running?
I think so.
I won't talk then.
That's.
That would be bad. I'm talking to myself here. Fix it up. Sometimes I do that. I'm supposed to watch that clock when it comes on. It won't come on for 2 minutes.
Yeah. So I think he has to put on a good production. So we're just working on the time. So that.
Did you say you start at 1:35?
Yeah. And then if you carry over into the animation a little bit, then it's kind of a nice transition.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I do see that there's some smooth ways that they run these services online. There's like a fade in, fade out. And the timing is all just right. Okay. So when they do wherever you are, it still ring the bell and then they start playing.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna watch this for another few.
Judy started watching the bell is on the screen to know when she should go in the room.
Okay.
So we kind of use the screens a little bit to help coordinate the time.
Okay. So if nothing's happening, I'll look at the screen. But I know that like after this meditation silence, I watch Tim and Eve. That's probably not.
Testing, testing.
Did you hear that?
No, I did not.
For announcements, ask if somebody would like to take the leadership role for the rummage sale. Which would basically occupy 6 weeks. And if so, see Sandra.
Welcome to First Unitarian Church of Toledo on this July 4th weekend. I am Judy Lee Troutman, today's service associate. The Reverend Dr. T.K. Barker, our senior minister, is leading the service today. All are welcome here. Our church is one of deeds, not creeds. We support one another in our individual search for meaning in our life journeys. We encourage all people to use their voice in support of justice. Please note the information cards in the pew rack in front of you. If you are visiting and wish to be kept in touch regarding our many programs, please fill out the yellow card so that we may add you to our email UUFYI list. A rainbow-colored card lists our principles and sources that Unitarian Universalists agree to support. If you would like to take any of these cards with you, please feel free. After the service, you are invited to coffee hour in Fellowship Hall, which is just down the hall and to your left. We thank Bonnie Rowe for providing music today for today's service, as we're between music directors. While we continue to search for a new church musician, if you are musically inclined, you're invited, like Bonnie was, to play an anthem and hymn on Sundays or prepare the complete music for a service. Contact Reverend Tim if you like to perform and accompany on a Sunday this summer. Slots are still open. The Toledo Unitarians Multi-Faith Meditations, 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. on Tuesdays, and held in alliance with Flowing Water Sangha, have been Zoom only for most of the pandemic. Beginning this Tuesday, July 5th, they'll be both in person in the Carl Sagan Room, our church's meditation place, and continuing also on Zoom. So you're invited to sit then with other meditators in the room or in cyberspace. If any of you are interested in providing some leadership for our church rummage sale, it would be a job of about 6 or 8 weeks to collect the items and then direct the sale time. If you were interested in helping with this, please see Sandra Kosick. And that's it for our announcements for the week. I hope you enjoy your holiday weekend. And now for opening words, The Right to Choose by Elizabeth Mount. To begin, to start, to create, to undertake, to grow, to promise, to increase, to generate. All these are a birthright. As we are created, so may we create. The ability and the choice to create is sacred. To withdraw that chance from any person without their permission would be a violent act, the cutting off of life itself. A single powerful red-orange flame glows in the darkness around it. And yet, as precious is the right to simply not, to end, to terminate, to stop, to discontinue, to rest, to hibernate, to impede, to prevent. These too are our birthright. For without consent, our ability to create becomes not a blessing, but a burden and an imposition. Without space for a no, there can be no trustworthy yes. Today we come to this holy place and time, ready to invoke the divine, to make space for the sacred, to co-create community once again. This too is a choice. You cannot, you may not be coerced into relationship with the holy or with one another. I invite you, I ask you to join us. I respect it if you will not today or ever. More sacred than any other individual need is choice, the right to know oneself, the right to know what you are ready for, what you need, to stretch when you can, to pause when you will, to know your body, your mind, your spirit better than anyone else, and ultimately to be trusted with the responsibility of your own living.
Apparently, we're missing some auditorium sound this morning. I hope that we do have audio going over YouTube, but I'll try to speak loudly enough and project. As Judy lights our chalice, I have these words adapted from Francis David. The most important spiritual function is conscience, the source of all spiritual joy and happiness. As we light this chalice, we trust that conscience will not be quieted by anything less than truth and justice. And please join me in reciting our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And our opening hymn today is number 318, We Would Be One.
Good morning. I want to preface by saying that I put this story on the schedule 2 weeks ago. It hits a little bit differently right now, and for that, I am with you. Have you ever stopped to think about all the different people you love and all the different people who love you? There are many kinds of love and many ways to show that you love someone. Valentine's Day is a holiday that celebrates love. People often give each other cards on Valentine's Day to show each other that they care. Receiving a Valentine can make someone feel special and appreciated, especially when it's a homemade Valentine. Think about the people you would give a Valentine to. Would you make one for your parents or your grandparents? What about your cousins, your friends, your neighbors? What about your governor? On Valentine's Day in 2005, thousands of Unitarian Universalists in California sent cards to their governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Do you think they sent him Valentines because they loved him? No. They sent him Valentines because they wanted to teach him something about love. California had a law about who was allowed to get married and who was not. The law said that if a man and a woman loved each other, they were allowed to show their love and become a family by getting married. But if two men loved each other or two women, the law said they could not get married. We are Unitarian Universalists, and we value all love. When a law says that some people's love is better or more important than other people's love, we believe that that is hurtful and unfair. Telling two women or two men who love each other that they cannot get married also means that the laws will not protect them as a family. The law says that their community does not have to help them share their life plans, their money, or even their children the same way other couples can. That's why UU congregations in California decided to get involved and speak out about the law. They wanted to tell the governor how important marriage equality was to them. If he understood that, they thought he would support marriage equality too. The California congregations could have made lots of phone calls to the governor's office or written emails to the governor, but that was not enough. They wanted to do something big, something colorful, something that would grab the governor's attention. In the days leading up to Valentine's Day, people in nearly every UU congregation in California made Valentines for Governor Schwarzenegger. Children and adults alike cut out paper hearts in pink, red, and all colors of the rainbow. They glued on ribbons and lace, sequins and feathers. They wrote messages of love, acceptance, and justice, because that's what marriage equality is all about. Dear Governor, wrote one woman from the Unitarian Universalist Church in Berkeley, roses are red, violets are blue. All people deserve the same rights as you. Reverend Nada Velimirovich from Oakland, California, made a giant Valentine the governor could not miss. It was almost as tall as you are. Please stand on the side of love, it requested, in capital letters inside a huge pink heart. At the Unitarian Society of Santa Barbara, people set up tables to make Valentines during coffee hour. Members of all ages showed each other how to cut hearts out of folded paper. They made each other's hearts fancy with curly ribbons and other decorations. The young people and older people working together felt joyful and hopeful as they decorated their Valentines. They talked about different kinds of love and how important it is for communities to support all kinds of families to help love hold them together. They hoped their Valentine message would convince the governor. The Santa Barbara congregation mailed their Valentines to the UU Legislative Ministry in Sacramento, the capital of California. So did dozens of other congregations, 3,800 Valentines. The Valentines were collected in huge bags made of see-through gauze, the same material that is used to make a bride's wedding veil. Everyone could see all the special cards Governor Schwarzenegger was getting. The bags stuffed with Valentines were brought directly to the governor's office. Imagine thousands of Valentines all going through the metal detector at the state capitol building. It was a bold, beautiful statement for love. Later that year, when Governor Schwarzenegger had the chance to support marriage equality, he did not. But don't let that make you think that the Valentines weren't important. Sometimes it takes a while to change someone's mind. The governor did not forget the Valentines, and a couple of years later, he decided he agreed with many Californians that the marriage laws were not fair. The Valentine's Day action also helped Unitarian Universalists become leaders of the campaign for marriage equality in California. The children and adults who made the Valentines for the governors showed everyone how our congregations work together for justice. Even though UU's numbers are small in California compared to other religions, some of us were invited to a meeting where the governor explained his point of view about equal marriage. Then we led a group of people from different religions to take the marriage equality campaign into California's courts. It was all because of our Valentines. After that, Governor Schwarzenegger, his advisors, and everyone working for marriage equality in California knew how Unitarian Universalists can unite in faithful action and use the democratic process to push for fairness.
Please join me for a time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer. This being the weekend of Independence Day, I could have brought a meditation of perceived patriotism, all about love of country, which we do have. But today I bring another aspect of patriotism, which is doubt. And doubt as the calling of the conscience. These words are by Robert T. Weston, and it's cherish your doubts. Cherish your doubts, for doubt is the attendant of truth. Doubt is the key to the door of knowledge. It is the servant of discovery. A belief which may not be questioned binds us to error, for there is incompleteness and imperfection in every belief. Doubt is the touchstone of truth. It is an acid which eats away the false. Let no one fear the truth, that doubt may consume it, for doubt is a testing of belief. The truth stands boldly and unafraid. It is not shaken by the testing, for truth if it be truth, arises from each testing stronger, more secure. Those that would silence doubt are filled with fear. Their houses are built on shifting sands. But those who fear not doubt and know its use are founded on rock. They shall walk in the light of growing knowledge. The work of their hands shall endure. Therefore, let us not fear doubt, but let us rejoice in its help. Doubt is the attendant of truth. Let's observe 1 minute of silence.
This responsive reading is in your hymnal number 594, Principles and Purposes for All of Us, adapted from the Unitarian Universalist Association Principles and Purposes. So there'll be a congregation part after each of my statements, and it will be on the screen to help. We affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We affirm and promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. We affirm and promote acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth. We affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We affirm and promote the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process. We affirm and promote the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. We affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part.
We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. What an appropriate principle to talk about on the July 4th Independence Day weekend. We can call this our red, white, and blue Unitarian Universalist principle. But this concept is a bit scary too, as we see the decisions of a newly empowered conservative majority Supreme Court, at least 3 of those associate justices seated by legal means, though immorally, using our nation's democratic process, in my opinion, appearing to try to move society backwards. I'm not going to get into over-precise terminology today and try to explain the differences between a democratic republic and a Republican democracy, for example, if there is any difference. There are no political science courses on my academic transcript. And while for a time I edited legislation, then law books, I never went to law school. I did go to a Unitarian Universalist seminary, though, and could drone on about congregational polity and our church democracy, but our delegates to the Unitarian Universalist Association General Assembly have just returned from that annual gathering, and our Toledo Unitarians annual meeting was only 6 weeks ago. So you might want a breather from our own electing and representing activities. In the crossover, with our congregation involved in the democratic process of where we live, we're pretty comfortable, I'd say, with how things are done. If not at the moment, with what is decided. Members of our congregation are active in UU the Vote and are advocating for participation in the electoral process as our civic responsibility. Though we might not feel much comfort in legislative narrowing of what we think are rights related to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We work to change minds and to show that we're here and we can contact our elected representatives and advocate for compassion and justice. I will say that this 5th principle's wording is the democratic process. And there is not just one way to exercise democracy, even if we do try to summarize and simplify it by saying one person, one vote. You do know that our congregation and the U.S. Congress don't operate in the same manner. In this congregation and in the governmental political process, from city level to state and federal government, we observe representative democracy. We don't carry everything to individual votes, but we elect leaders to represent us. And we hope they do keep the entire community in mind as our representatives. Those leaders form their own ways of trying to represent, including with committees and caucuses, and that's just the legislative branch. The executive and judicial branches of government have their structures too, and there's more appointment of leaders than election in those branches, though they're still considered democratic in the way they reach those positions of responsibility. We hope with all this variety in the democratic process and the big issues these societal stand-ins face in their work for we the people, they do keep us in mind. Keeping us in mind gets to conscience, a very important aspect of being in community. And sometimes that seems to be falling away in some manners, as seen by political polarization and the term bipartisanship coming to mean that a single party member will cross the line and vote with their perceived opposition rather than an issue being more important than a politician's alliance. Maybe it's a lack of active conscience for all that got our nation to an extreme political polarization today. The system has seemed to carry a consciousness for supreme white males and a way of comfort that doesn't include people from all over the world making their homes together and living their own best selves. Returning to what used to be as a way of comfort rather than making change work in order for us all to live in one loving, ever-changing world is a tendency of avoiding the reality of community influenced by all people in it. There's too little consciousness that, as Heraclitus, who as a Greek philosopher in the 5th and 6th centuries before the Common Era, might have been a white male of his day, but had wisdom that carries through to today, said, "You can't step in the same river twice." Change won't let you return to what was. Can you let your conscience guide rather than memory? And wise as Heraclitus was, can you also be open today to new voices, new perspectives, the lives of people so long ignored at minimum and persecuted, even executed at the extreme? Make this an all-inclusive society based on the democratic process and the right of conscience. What is conscience? Terms from Merriam-Webster definition include moral goodness and blameworthiness, good acts, and even conformity to what one considers to be correct, right, or morally good. Conformity makes room for one another. Conscience gets to right and wrong. And why don't we agree on what is and isn't right? I continue to say that there's a difference between religious liberalism and being politically liberal. But this fifth principle on the democratic process and conscience, both in congregations and in society, is where church and state come into some commonality. It's recognizing that we all live in this world, and here's a way we can all get along, live together. We have a lot to do to make our liberal religious conscience manifest and to see that all people have a voice. The principle says that conscience is a right. Make sure it's a right that's in use. To make this principle be effective, please do your part in society. If you have a vote, exercise it. As a congregation member, as a U.S. citizen, especially with the state of the nation today, make your voice heard and support conscientious representatives at every level, in church and at state. So be it.
Thank you, Reverend TK. And now it is time for our offering. There's a saying, the Lord loves a cheerful giver. Well, this church loves a cheerful giver also. Your pledges and offerings are a way that you can support the self-sustaining church, its many programs, and its mission in the broader community. You may give online by going to our website, uutoledo.org, click on Give, and then Online Giving. You may instead mail a check to First Unitarian Church, 3205 Glendale Avenue, Toledo 43614. And you may drop your donations or even a little extra in the basket on the welcome table in the entranceway.
And coming soon, next week at 9:45 a.m. in Fellowship Hall is our spiritual forum. We're being pretty low-key about it for the month of July, but we are meeting for that hour, and most likely we'll have an open discussion, but that is to be determined, and we might decide on the topic when we're all gathered together then. And then at the 11 a.m. service next Sunday, it's Build a Fair and Peaceful World on the 6th Unitarian Universalist principle.
And please don't forget that there is a coffee hour and social time in Fellowship Hall after the service today. Now for these closing words, the idea of democracy by Abraham Lincoln. As labor is the common burden of our race, so the effort of some to shift their share of the burden onto the shoulders of others is the great, durable curse of the race. As I would not be a slave, so I would not be a master. This expresses my idea of democracy. Whatever differed from this, to the extent of the difference, is no democracy. Our reliance is in our love for liberty. Our defense is in the spirit which prizes liberty as the heritage of all people in all lands everywhere. Destroy this spirit, and we have planted the seeds of despotism at our own doors. Those who deny freedom to others deserve it not for themselves and cannot long retain it. Why should there not be a patient confidence in the ultimate justice of the people? Is there any better or equal hope in the world? Let us have faith that right makes might, and in that faith, let us, to the end, dare to do our duty as we understand it.
As we send the flame of our chalice into the community, we'll call it the fire of conscience and hope that it will spread and that its enlightenment will bring better democracy in society.